everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today we have two remarkable poets with us, Laurel Bogen and Mark Edward Rhodes. Laurel Ann will read first. Laurel Bogen is the author of 11 books of poetry and short fiction, the most recent of which is Psychosis in the Produce Department, New and Selected Poems 1975-2015 from Red Hen Press. A native of Los Angeles, she has been an instructor in the writers program at UCLA Extension since 1990 and a founding member of the celebrated performance poetry ensemble, Nearly Fatal Women. There's a sacredness, a search for purity, bewilderment, an excellent use of language, a love of shoe, love of movies, love of Gene Wilder, who, quote, saved her life, and empathy for the, quote, wallflower, a deep knowledge of the terrain of LA, her home city, a graciousness and generosity in Laurel Ann's poetry. In her poem, My Sentence, Laurel Ann wrote, I have served my sentence with devotion, watched as it flailed and rose on the page, becoming that which I never could be, poetry. She is her poetry. She's a compassionate and wondrous poet. Here's Laurel Ann Bogen.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for having me come and read my poems to you. I'd like to dedicate my reading today to my friend Holly Prado Northup. I decided I was going to read mostly poems about Los Angeles and Hollywood, but I might sneak a little something else in too. I'll begin with a poem entitled My Celluloid Heroes. In whose dreams will these stars shimmer 100 light years from now? Their blown up images snipped of imperfections, the errant mole, and ingrown hair where paste does not pass for diamonds. Confined by fame, Pilates, and exfoliation, tucked in canyons behind gated walls. Some corner the market on chihuahuas. Others collect bags of kudos. They tell me Rodeo Drive is a state of mind. As for mine, it skims along Hollywood Boulevard like a chauffeur. From the back seat, I hear my voice at home in the shadows. I don't want to sleep yet, Bogen. Drive. I can see and not be seen. Invisible in a world in which I was born. Now you see me. Now you don't. So, yes, I was born in downtown Los Angeles at a hospital entitled California Hospital. And I've lived here, I'd say, well, every now and then I go away for a while, but I keep coming back. And so it's pretty much in my veins, the city. And this one is called Hollywood Hills Noir. Some things you may not know about Los Angeles is that Los Angeles sits on pools of oil. And let's see what else I can tell you in case you need anything else. I think you probably got it. Hollywood Hills Noir. Aberration of weather studs the slow-eyed city where change gels in ripples after due process. I could go deeper, pry open the locked vault below. Combustible fossils bubble in tar and petroleum beneath Wilshire Boulevard. The jacaranda's roots divide the house. Los Angeles erupts in violet blossoms. each spring. The profusion is uncontained by stucco. Nature needs tending, of course. Every few years, the plates shift. The photogenic councilman is arrested, and somebody takes a fall. That's how I came here, by a calling as surely as the devil herself, cloaked in the need to be seen in filtered light, latticed with fault lines, and an underground whirlpool as profligate as oil. Now, this one's a little bit different. It's a poem that I've written that's entitled, and you kind of have to remember the title to make the poem work, and I'm going to give you a little background. It's called The Waldorf Astoria Family Album, New York, August 1963. Now, my dad was a PE teacher at Hamilton High School for like 35 years. So that meant he had summers off. And we took many, many, many road trips. And my dad was the youngest in his family and the first one to be born in the United States. And he was born in New York City, and his family lived there. And he went west and didn't go back after World War II. And so this is about a trip that we took when I was born in 1950, so I was about 13 then. And so JFK was president, and we were going to New York driving, and this is about our trip. The Waldorf Astoria Family Album, New York, August 1963. Sitting at the Fairfax Theater in Los Angeles, I thought of bellhops and Ginger Rogers' Kitty Matinee. I was, in fact, 13 that summer, but looked younger, quiet, did what I was told. I liked the movies, lived in them. We had been the promised ones, 2 pet schnauzers, a leather harness to keep my brother from straying, me a head taller, reticent, rarely photographed. We wanted to be liked. I sniffed and curtsied. I'm a little teapot, short and stout. He gallantly threw footballs and baseballs in front of the white stucco house on Norton Avenue while we waited for Davy Crockett to save us. But what we must have meant to my father, the family, then driving back to his boyhood home in upstate New York, a transcontinental journey in a Cadillac convertible with fins and a blonde shiksa wife, the baby brother who made good, the 2 of us, their offspring, the cousins from California, didn't know egg creams or the automat, but were good kids. Might have to smack them around now and then. I put Mad Magazine on the backseat floor as we crossed the George Washington Bridge, slipped my shoes on and looked up at slab after slab of buildings lined up in rows, blocking the sky, until I see flags and a man with gold epaulets on his uniform standing outside a revolving doorway on Park Avenue, and Dad glides the Cadillac up to the curb, runs his hands through his hair, comes back and says, "Helen, we're staying at the Waldorf." Inside, my brother slides across the polished marble floor of the lobby like we belonged, with the popular young president who reigned in Camelot. Nothing bad could ever happen to any of us. But something bad did happen. But anyway, let's go. You know, it's what is it? Foreshadowing. Now, this is this poem has been performed a few times on CDs. There was one called, oh, I can't remember what, but Harvey Kubernick put this on his one of his CDs. It's called Union Station. I needed a timetable for my heart. It always arrived too early, departed too late, wandered, lost on platforms. I needed you to steamroller the creases I folded too many times. I was hurry and drag, beat slow, sink steps. I came in pieces like misplaced baggage, cartons tied with baling wire. You held tight against the spillage and random punches. Oh, I loved you like speed, like fast exits and jackrabbit starts. You held all the tickets. You opened the gates. It was 2 minutes to boarding, and we pulled out all the stops. Now, this one is entitled Untitled LA Poem. And that is the title, Untitled LA Poem. The palms flatten against chance hot winds. We bore in for the duration. Rigid, even the palms yield to our touch. Oh, Los Angeles, we are your spawn, whim, and hope. Our eyes pan one another for the right side, the solid profile. Your face screams huge. I cannot reach behind for the yes, the hungry yes. We need so much. We cannot even touch. The palms of our hands, tight fists. We hold it in. We hold it in. Now, I've been reading poems about Los Angeles, but this is a poem that's not about Los Angeles. It's about a place I've never been to, but I imagined that if I had, it might be about something like this. Havana. Damp gardenias pause. This night, Havana. your name a sigh, rolled on the thighs of bronze women. Istanbul, Cairo were discarded like petals. This is my season of Havana. Once I held a black ink pen and wrote a word I scarcely knew. H. You emerged unsettled. A. With each letter. V. Followed this day's vivid streets. A. To find me here. N. It is for you. I paint my lips coral. A. It is for you. Havana, you lick into corners of the red night, drunk on Cuba Libras and sugarcane water. Tango, samba, the scratch of phonograph beguiles the blood to begin the tissuing off of taffeta, corset, stockings. You move against me, your face a muzzle, a gun, a circular fan, click seconds, te amo. Your black curls shake, and my head shakes. Yes. We rise from ashes of the night, dress and leave. We do this again and again. Havana, you are all they warn me about. More than the sum of myself and my others, more than that, more. You are every drug, liquor, and sin that was whispered among your girls, and still I choose you. You take me down pungent streets. This is the street of orchids, where you wooed me with ambiguous dilemmas. This is the street of hibiscus, where I sweep my hair away from my face and I memorize lips tangled in strands. Here are mango, indigo, papaya, slow streets that move like sweet intoxication until your tattoo appears on my shoulder and the stretch of our bodies pads like cats, the curve from waist to hip, the round of belly, the knowledge of muscle. Must I divulge my secrets? This is hard time, Havana. A time when the wind blows black and your name appears on a park bench. You beckon from the smokestacks of Pittsburgh and the windowsills of Manchester and are gone. I took you home, folded you away, a bureau where your name breathes, a hot wind blowing Havana. This is your 2-poem warning. I'm going to read you a poem. It's part of a group of poems about my alter ego known as Detective Supremo. Does not exist except in my brain, but she's quite a character, I will say. Detective Supremo. L.A. Bogen. Detective Supremo. My very name rolls on the tongue like an aperitif or a recalled cheese. An open parenthesis of mayhem on the make, of a sulky Afternoon of Los Angeles, clues burn rubber at my touch. Again, you say, you want something black and lethal and smoking. I remember the Dane curse case and smooth the seams on black silk stockings. Baby, what you need is a little private surveillance, a little Mickey Finn, night on the town, a 1-2 combination. You forget a smile as I tap red lacquer nails on glass and exhale a Santa Ana condition, Mulholland Drive, and the whole bloody San Andreas fault. And suddenly the bougainvillea greet you like a happy extortionist. And it's Cinco de Mayo everywhere you look as I melt into crowds, just one step behind you. And I really, really want to thank you so much for having me come to read to you today. It was a great honor, and I want to thank you, Harry, and Jennifer. And now if I can just find my last poem, my sentence. No, it's here somewhere. Of course, it never comes up when you're looking for it. My sentence. The noose of it wears me big. I weigh and grind the words with method, efficiency, afraid of what they might say and punctuate of my life. At first, I was confused, could not unknot the stray tangents. The first time I saw my mother, or the last kiss before sleep, wanted to round up order and let meaning fall where it may. Later, I played it out as it showed itself to me, coaxed my human mind to mastery. I have served my sentence with devotion, watched as it flailed and rose on the page, becoming that which I could never be, poetry. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurel Ann, for that wonderful reading, the poignant Waldorf poem, the lovely Havana, sensuous, as it was when you first read it, and also that marvelous Detective Supremo poem. And the last poem, I love it. You're marvelous. So thank you very much, Laurel Ann, for blessing us with your wonderful poetry.
Thank you.
Mark Edward Rhodes is a poet and playwright. He has written 4 books of poetry and 13 plays. He lives in Santa Monica, California with his wife, the writer Star Goody. When I first heard Mark Rhodes read his poem about being a U.S. Marine in Vietnam, Cincinnatus, I was stunned by its authenticity, depth, poignancy. He has also written evocative poems about Ireland, its earth, people, language, myths. His book, Approaching Darkness, Selected Poems 1978 to 2015, astounds, astonishes, reveals the intersection of literature and nature, forged by a rare strength of narrative and honesty and depth of heart. Here's a magnificent poet, Mark Edward Rhodes.
Thank you. I don't see my, oh, there I am. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you, Laurel Ann. I never thought I would get to read with you, but I did, and you're one of the best. Thank you. I'm going to try and go through these poems real quickly. Anyway, the first poem is very old, and it's called Jazz, and at Monterey Jazz Festival, 1969. A cool wind, a warning. Behind his shades, he shuts out the laughter glad hands, hallelujahs, and silver shadow symphonies of mild applause. Tonight he is all law of the jungle, religion of the river, bird calls and backbeats all out of time, as lightning flashes over the peninsula and the horn talks. From Silk to Shout, Green Dolphin Street, round midnight, the spirit of Charlie Parker hangs like a mosquito net over the bandstand. Miles Davis shines. The Pilgrim of Pain flits down the alley at 138th Street, past the after-hours cats, the humbugs and high rollers, the panthers and their prey, one and the same that cast a bad news shadow. All along 8th Avenue, the White Horse walks. From up above, the wailing sound, whiskey breath engage in the back room. Uptown, the tenor man jumps the tracks. The rain comes down. Below the cracked black glass, Miles Davis takes a shot at the moon. The saxophone slips, then picks up speed. The underpinning thunders. Miles Davis smiles. I know you don't believe that, but Miles Davis did smile. In the feints and fighting and mad anger of his playing, he keeps an eye on the stingy brim bouncing on his head. The tenor man moves too fast to feel the rain. Miles pivots, Miles bows, rain like stilettos driving down. The crowd running for cover, but only he knows there's no place to hide. Drowning in emotion, he will be finished when he finishes. He is a waterfall. The next poem is called Crossing the Fairway. That's a golf course. So there's a short poem about that. The seagull passed over the lawn in late afternoon, in the shimmering autumn light, the sun illuminating its wingspan, never still, a gliding figurine, feathered bone white into blue. It flew without visible effort above the grass so green it punished the eyes with memory. It flew so high for a while that it hurled no shadow into the shade of a Chinese elm waiting for winter. I watched it bank left into the wind, tumble down, then pass behind a line of young pine trees on the hill, hidden for a moment, then reappearing on our right flank, fleeing now, going west to sleep in the sand. Well, here's a New York poem. Not as good as yours, Laurel, but here we go. It's called Eurythmics. Wind music is making the snapdragons sway in modes of jerk and strut. A type of eurythmics mocking a waltz is taking place, pushed by the sound of a recorder or panpipe playing. As the day slips in and the blossoms calm down for a while, still various shuddering, multicolored movements begin bobbing and weaving as if memory would not leave them be. Bees are beginning to congregate. Tulips on Fifth Avenue muster outside the Plaza Hotel, their enormous fragile heads turning, yellow and pink, the sun, a soft disk of light on the wide sidewalks, the sky shimmering anonymously. Taxis rumba and right themselves, stopping and starting, darting in and out. That woman walking away in the black skirt takes me with her, a little hip for the trip and the flamboyant shoulder slide. Flags and banners rustle and rip. A large crowd, far distant, unseen, is streaming over the 59th Street Bridge, a serpentine sonata of humanity. They are dancing among the flowers now, along the concrete, in the park, by the river. Inside a cityscape, never standing still, always moving, fast forwarding without hesitation. The prime mover, never stopping for a second, the mindless, unknowable cause in rocking horse rhythms of life. This is called a fictive music on the edge of space. A few years ago, if time, our time that is relevant, Pluto moved inside the orbit of Neptune. This was not wishful thinking, because according to science, it can be proved as fact. In reverie for a while, sweet sounds weave into and around the planets, seeking asteroids and turning moons. This belies their power. The laughter in a white dwarf, the bushwhacking of pathways to the stars. They bump and rumba, then move on, slinging doorbell bricks, attenuated silken sighs in the thin air, while scrawling ghost-like images of fire and ice across the wide eternal canopy of firmament. So we all want to make the right choice, but reason is not always a true and faithful guide. Therefore, at times, this chore falls to the imagination, an equally reckless and self-absorbed scout. Sitting on the beach, the music I long to hear comes quietly, languidly, accompanied by odd questions concerning this new position of Pluto in the heavens. Is Eurydice now walking towards the light? Or is it that Orpheus has not yet turned around? This is a couple Irish poems. The title of this poem is called The Dark Looper. And I have a little note for myself here. In rural Ireland, not so much anymore, the fairies would come to people who were sleeping in the fields and put a little black bug in their ear. And after that bug gets in there, their whole personality changes and they do some really, really not nice things. So this is called The Dark Looper. And I met a man outside a pub there, and he told me, he says, I'll not lie to you. He says, I need a drink. And so I gave him some money and he went away. So this is a poem kind of reminds me of him. The Dark Looper. Fair play to you, you sorry young scamper. You appears to be so troubled and wan. Have you been doing the dirty, feeling a bit cramper, not taking your vitamins, nursing the Cruiskeen lawn, interfering with yourself, filthy mag on the toilet, feeling the cherries, the black and the blues at snooker, grinding the ass end of the joint without the proper to boil it. Now it could be your karma or the creeping dark looper. I'm afraid you must bar that mingy hole bitch by the river, drop the bad habit bandit at the betting shop booker, give up the tobacco, the beer, drugs, and the quiver, confess to the priest, the mother, the wife, and don't rook her. Yeah, the Cruiskeen lawn is Irish for the full glass. This is a poem. I met a man in 1998 while I was there by myself, and he kind of told me this story. It's called Entre Bain, and here it is, short poem. What was it like when you arrived there? Were the skies still blue? Are the sands where you now walk warm? Is there time to think? Things are about the same round here. It's been raining since you moved on. No, not outside. The sun was out every day. But in the vacant room where you used to sleep, where I stand looking at the floor, and I just let it come. I just let it down. I just wish me well in the days ahead. Later on, I hope to see you once again. on the shore where birds call out your name and my name in a single singing breath. In rural Ireland, if you're not the oldest son, you do not inherit the farm and you end up living with your mom, usually. And so the woman in the poem is his mother. Speaking of Irishmen, here's a play by a very short poem by Samuel Beckett. It's all done in pantomime and maybe a couple of whispers. It's a wonderful play. If you get a chance to see it, please do. Come and go. Secrets are being shared. Now everybody knows. 3 frail women faces hidden beneath broad-brimmed hats, old summer dresses, gray, yellow, gray. Shoes, midnight black, words faintly spoken, sentences not finished, like sparrows in the shadows speak before the night falls in the shade of a sycamore. Then silence. Then, when hands are reaching out, when hands are being held, arms crossing, rising and falling, finding their way, wings warm, unfolded like a bird, quiet in darkness, saying nothing, nothing needed to say, from early morning throughout the day, into late evening, coming and going, touching or not touching, only silence, only now, only the now. Dark leaves overhead, saying only what is needed to say, and so only silence, only the silence, silence saying, well, Laurel Ann was talking about LA. I was born here. And here's a poem about that, sort of. I was born during the last days of winter. Let's get the ball rolling. Such an odd and playful phrase. Everyone has a ball of some sort, and every ball is a different color. My ball is red and very small. I was born in March, the Martian boy. I loved baseball. I still do. A baseball is white until it gets scuffed. Someone once said, baseball is like life, but didn't explain why that was so. Someone else said, life is but a dream, but to me that meant it wasn't always real. We all get the ball rolling when we're young. If we're lucky, when we're old, it will slowly come to a stop. Then all will be quiet, hopefully. Then the rose will not require its fragrance. Life is a waiting game. Even when we can't feel we've been waiting for anything. What is it? We sometimes wonder. But no one will answer this question. When the ball stops rolling, then we get to know. Or else won't get to know, but then it won't matter. I've decided that when that day comes, we will hear a sound from a faraway distance. We will be in a field of wheat ready for the harvest, and the wind will be all around us and within us. Then we will face each sacred direction there, before lying down in a dream among the golden shafts of grain. And then we will disappear, to merge into the light of the Ancient of Days and be still, but still turning there. Some call this place the Oblivion Palace, while many others call it something else. I met a man who used to give me books a long time ago. I was 13, 14 years old. And, I started reading these books, and then started to write poetry. I was 14 and I wrote these poems about these animals. And, there's always animals get hit by cars and stuff like that. And so we had a dog that only had 3 legs. So this was one of the poems I wrote, and I actually found it about 3 or 4 years ago, and I thought it was gone forever, but here it is. And remember now, I'm 14, so don't judge me too harshly. The 3-legged dog. There once was a 3-legged dog who couldn't run, so he jogged. But he knew it was fate that he'd always come late because he had no get up and go. And when the other dogs asked, "Why so slow?" he answered, "Because I'm lame, but I get there just the same." Last poem is, all these poems fall into kind of a thing. There's a writer and a poet, a friend of my wife's, Patricia Monahan, said something. And it's not the superscription for this poem, but it could be for a lot of poems. She once said, "I don't have to know. I only have to wonder." So this took place in Carmel a long time ago. Answer to an unasked question. While sitting on a bench above the sea, she came and sat beside me, and together we watched the sky and the sun come down to meet the horizon that never moved as we moved into the dark of darkest night. "You are going to be all right," she said. "Yes," she said, looking at me. "How do you know this is true?" I asked her, and she said, "Just be still and try not to speak or to move at all, if possible. Open your eyes and find something to follow. Clouds, ocean, sun, the birds going by. Time out of time, not of knowing events out of sequence, rain falling, but not seem to be coming down. The ground wet and warm with the sight and smell of water, rainwater. Yes, that was it, an ocean. It was a long time ago. And then the ineffable, but not in time, no, and no prayer was made, never that. But you knew one thing for sure, that you were happy for a moment or two. And then everything was fine. Everything was good. Was yes. Everything was yes. Just say yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your spirited, rhythmic New York poems, the deep resonance in your Irish poems. You have such a great ear, and the emotional content of it, your poetry is always very heartfelt as well as being concise, and yet it's copious. And I always loved the honesty and the authenticity in your poetry. It just, listening to each one of you read, I love the movies. I made a living in the movies, and it's a great, great invention. Poetry, though, takes me, one person sitting there reading his or her poetry, and the emotional and the experience just is, it just knocks me out.